Welcome back to this explainer, breaking down the Europe Bazaar data for the fourth week of August 2026. Look, if you're managing a procurement strategy, you already know that keeping your finger on the pulse of the market isn't just helpful, it's absolutely essential. In this session, we're delivering rapid, actionable market intelligence to help you navigate this end-of-summer market landscape. We're going to unpack exactly what's moving, what's stalling, and most importantly, why it's all happening, so you can make the most informed decisions possible. Okay, let's dive right in.
Now, everything we're looking at today, all the raw data, the pricing trends, the whole shebang, comes directly from Polymer Bazaar. They're our go-to source for navigating the complexities of European polymer markets this week. By focusing strictly on this hard data, we can cut through all the noise and give you the exact insights you need for your purchasing strategies.
So, here's what's on the docket today. We'll look at the price climbers, the stable and falling markets, some contrasting market drivers, and finally, the overall procurement outlook.
Starting things off with Section 1, the price climbers.
And wow, despite generally dull end-of-summer market conditions, we're actually seeing some massive upward movements right now. The biggest shockwave hitting buyers this week? A massive €78 per metric ton spike. In a market that's otherwise bogged down by sluggish summer demand, a sudden leap of this magnitude is a huge red flag for procurement budgets. Let's look at exactly which material is causing this disruption.
That €78 spike belongs to the polystyrene market. This steep climb brings general-purpose polystyrene, or GPPS, all the way up to €1,680 per metric ton on a free-delivered Northwest Europe basis. And high-impact polystyrene, or HIPS, that's jumping to €1,780 per metric ton. So the crucial question is, what's driving this? Well, the source data shows that actual purchases completely failed to gain any strength. Buyers aren't suddenly clamoring for PS. Instead, this price hike is being driven entirely by surging production costs pushing up from the supplier side.
But polystyrene isn't the only material taking a hike. Ethylene vinyl acetate, or EVA, jumped $48 to hit $1,700 per metric ton. But check out the difference in the underlying driver here. Unlike polystyrene, which was forced up by production costs, EVA is rising simply because market participants are actively anticipating a near-term strengthening in demand. Sellers are essentially pricing in a future rally before it even fully materializes on the order books.
Rounding out our price climbers, we also tracked moderate bumps for both PP and PET. Polypropylene nudged up €10 to settle at €1190 per metric ton. The culprit there? Tight import supply restricting availability. On the other hand, PET climbed €9 to reach €1220 per metric ton, and the catalyst there was increased feedstock costs. And you know what's really essential to note here? Both of these moderate climbers achieved these price increases even though actual purchasing activity remained incredibly weak.
Moving right along to Section 2, the stable and falling markets.
Here is where buyer hesitation and ample availability are successfully teaming up to keep a firm lid on prices. If you're procuring polyethylene, you actually caught a break this week. The PE market is remarkably subdued. LDPE actually dropped €9 down to €1,200 per metric ton. Meanwhile, LLDPE and HDPE for injection molding held perfectly steady at €1195 and €1130 respectively.
Let's unpack the why behind that PE market data. This softness in the polyethylene sector is a direct result of dull demand. The source notes that buyers are firmly sitting on their hands right now, showing absolutely zero interest in building their inventories. This stubborn reluctance to stock up is quite literally the primary anchor keeping PE prices from floating away.
We're seeing a similarly stagnant picture with our other flatliners. PVC is holding the line at €900 per metric ton, and ABS remains totally anchored at €1,900. But the context for each of these is super important. For PVC, the market is facing significant high feedstock cost concerns, yet slow demand is preventing those costs from being passed on to the buyer. For ABS, purchases are simply dull, keeping the market totally inactive. Now let's look at Section 3, contrasting market drivers. Understanding these underlying contradictions in the data is absolutely vital for timing your future purchases. You can't just look at the final price tag, right? You have to understand the opposing forces acting beneath the surface. Just look at the current import divide happening right now. Polypropylene prices were forced upward because import supply was tight. It's a classic supply bottleneck. Contrast that with ABS. ABS demand was just as dull as PP's, yet its prices stayed flat precisely because imported grades were amply available. It really goes to show how import logistics are single-handedly dictating price outcomes in a low-demand environment. And we see a strikingly similar contradiction when we look at production pressures. Take PVC versus PET here.
Both polymers faced almost identical market conditions this week. Weak, slow buyer demand coupled with high and rising feedstock costs. Yet, the outcomes were totally different. PET producers somehow managed to push a €9 price increase through to the market, while PVC prices remained completely stuck at stable levels. This highlights that cost pass-through isn't automatic. It depends heavily on the specific resilience of that particular polymer's supply chain. Which brings us to Section 4, the procurement outlook.
So what does all of this sluggish end-of-summer market data mean for your bottom line as we look ahead to the fall? The crucial takeaway is this. Dull seasonal demand is currently acting like a heavy blanket over the market. It's the primary and, in some cases, the only force masking significant underlying pressures right now. From that €78 shock in polystyrene to the creeping feedstock costs in PVC and PET, the pressure on the supplier side is building. The costs of production are rising across Europe.
Which leaves us with the ultimate strategic question for your upcoming procurement cycles. Will demand finally awaken in September? And if buyers do return to the market to restock their inventories, just how high will these already simmering cost pressures drive your prices once that summer blanket is lifted? It's a critical dynamic we'll need to monitor in the weeks ahead. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and I'll see you for the next market update.